At some point, someone who genuinely loved you started pulling away. Not slowly, not with warning. One day they were fully present. The next, something was different. Conversations became shorter. The warmth that used to feel automatic began to require effort. And the worst part? The harder you tried to close the distance, the more they seemed to pull away. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't change. But something in them shifted, and you were left standing in the space where connection used to be, wondering what happened. Here's the strange part. What they were pushing away may not have been you at all. This is one of the most disorienting experiences a person can have in a relationship, because logic says if someone loves you, they stay close. They lean in, they show up. That's what love looks like from the outside. But there's a version of love, a real, genuine, deeply felt version that sometimes produces the opposite behavior. A withdrawal that has nothing to do with how much someone cares and everything to do with how frightening it is to care that much. Understanding it doesn't make it hurt less immediately, but it might be the first thing that actually makes sense of something that never seemed to. Some people reach a point in a relationship where the connection starts to feel too real, not too much, just too real. There's a difference. Too much means overwhelming in a negative way. Too real means the stakes suddenly feel enormous. Losing this person would mean something. Being hurt by this person would mean something. And for someone who has experienced loss or pain in love before, that realization can trigger something they didn't choose and often don't understand. One possible explanation is that emotional closeness can become overwhelming for some people. When a relationship starts to feel deeply meaningful, fear quietly begins to compete with love. Even when everything seems fine on the outside, an internal alarm can make closeness feel risky, causing them to create distance without fully understanding why. Most of the time, pushing someone away isn't really about them. It's about something much older. People who consistently push away those closest to them often have a history of love that felt conditional, unpredictable, or painful in ways they never fully processed, a parent who was sometimes warm and sometimes absent, a relationship that ended without explanation, a loss that arrived before they were equipped to absorb it. And here's what happens to the nervous system after experiences like those. It learns, not through thought, but through pattern. It learns that closeness leads somewhere painful, that vulnerability is a risk with a cost, that the safest position is never to need someone so much that losing them would be devastating. So when a relationship grows to the point where the other person actually matters, truly matters, the nervous system does what it was trained to do. It creates distance. Not because the love isn't real, because the love is so real it's become terrifying. It rarely looks like what you'd expect. It doesn't always look like coldness. Sometimes it looks like starting arguments over small things, creating friction that pushes the other person into frustration rather than closeness. Sometimes it looks like becoming suddenly very busy, unavailable, harder to reach. Sometimes it looks like testing, saying things designed to see if the other person will leave, behaving in ways that seem to invite rejection, because rejection on their own terms feels more manageable than being left without warning. One possible reason is an unconscious pattern of self-sabotage. Without realizing it, some people create distance because losing someone on their own terms feels less frightening than being unexpectedly abandoned. It isn't usually intentional, but it can become a pattern that quietly repeats itself until it's understood. People assume that the person pulling away must feel relieved. They don't. Most of the time, they feel something closer to grief, a quiet ache for the closeness they're actively creating distance from. They want to be near. They also feel an internal alarm they don't know how to turn off. And it's not about not loving you enough. It's about not trusting that love is safe. For some people, feeling deeply loved has never been associated with safety. It's been associated with eventual loss, with disappointment, with the moment when things change without reason. So the love itself, the real, genuine feeling, becomes a trigger rather than the comfort. Chasing doesn't work, not because your care isn't valid, but because the more you pursue, the more the alarm in the other person escalates. You're not doing anything wrong. Their nervous system is just responding to closeness with the only strategy it knows. And trying to outlove someone's fear rarely softens it. It usually intensifies it. What can sometimes shift things, slowly and never guaranteed, is consistency without pressure. A presence that doesn't demand anything in return. Space that isn't abandonment. But this only works if the other person is willing to look at what's actually happening inside them. Most people who push away those they love have never had it explained to them that this is what they're doing or why. They just feel restless, trapped, or suddenly certain that something's wrong even when nothing is. Whether you're the person being pushed away or the person doing the pushing, this pattern is one of the most human things that exists. It's not a flaw. It's not a failure of love. It's what happens when someone learned somewhere along the way that being close means being exposed, and that exposure has always been followed by pain. The pushing away is a kind of protection, an old one that made sense once, in a different relationship, in a different time. It just doesn't know how to tell the difference between then and now. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, just understanding that is the beginning of something different. If someone is pushing you away right now, one possibility is that they're struggling with feelings they don't fully understand. Sometimes distance isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of fear. But every situation is different, and no single explanation fits every relationship. And if you recognize yourself as the one doing the pushing, the one who finds reasons to create distance exactly when things start to feel real, this might be worth sitting with. Not as a verdict, just as a question. What are you protecting yourself from? And is it still what you actually need protection from? Have you ever pushed someone away or been pushed away by someone who you know genuinely cared? Tell us in the comments if this helped you understand yourself or someone you love. Subscribe for more psychology-based videos.